I'm Kathy Callow-Huser. My story that I'm going to talk about today wouldn't be complete without talking about my children, so I'll start there. So there they are. Okay, two of my children are biological children, and when they were young, I was working for a special education professor that you'll hear more about in a minute, and he said, you need to teach them to read yourself. So he introduced me to this book, Teach Your Children to Read in 100 Easy Lessons, and when they were 4.5 and 5 consecutively, I taught my own children to read. I then adopted two children from the state of Utah. They were wards of the state. They were special needs kids. They were 2.5 and 8 when they joined our family. Our 8-year-old was at the end of 2nd grade, knew less than half of his letter sounds and letter names. And so I put him in a school that used the same method as this book uses. And by the end of 3rd grade, he was reading on a 5th grade level. So I was introduced to what we call now the science of reading, the body of research that we know contributes to teaching and learning reading. And that's what my story is going to be about today.
Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock on Wednesday, and that means it's time for 1 million cups. So get your donut, get your coffee, get seated, and let's roll. Oh, good. So the first thing to say is please check in. Point your phone at the QR code that's up here on the screen or on these cards that are sitting around on tables, and that will let the Kauffman Foundation know that our chapter of 1 Million Cups is thriving, and we have good attendance here. Okay, what's our mission? Our mission is to make it easier to be an entrepreneur. It's a lonely and difficult journey being an entrepreneur, and we're here to lower the barrier of access to education, resources, and connection for new and aspiring entrepreneurs all across the United States. And how do we do that nationally and locally? Nationally, we're supported by the Kauffman Foundation. They provide the software backend for us for booking engagements and tracking everything. And they also train our organizers in how to coach the presenters to fit the 1 Million Cups talk, which I'll have a moment to more to say about in just a moment. So every community has unique strengths. And of course, every chapter of 1 Million Cups seeks to emphasize those as well. So we are the top 1 Million Cups chapter in New Mexico, and we achieve that by having a small denominator. We would welcome Las Cruces. They've been talking about starting up, and that would be great. There are other chapters in the Southwest. If you're on the road and it's Wednesday morning at 9 a.m., see if there's a Million Cups chapter near you. You'll find the format familiar, and there are no strangers, just friends you haven't met. You'll drop right in, you'll feel like you belong. All right, here's our key pillars. These are presentations, not pitches. So in a pitch, you want investor money or you want customer money, and you're putting your best foot forward. So you're emphasizing those things that are most going to get them to say yes. And the things that keep you awake at night, you're not really talking about all that much. But this is a safe place to talk about those things. The challenges, the things you don't understand, the things you need help with. This is a good place to talk about those. And so there's two parts of that. There's the presenter that has to get out of the pitch mindset, which is difficult. And then there's the audience, which has to turn into being helpful rather than being critical. So we'd like to foster authentic connections rather than just speed networking. I mean, I've been to speed networking events. They're a lot of fun, but they don't always turn into lasting things. And around here, you'll find if you see somebody, week after week over the course of months, and you get to know them and get to know what they're good at, and they understand you, you might find that they'd be helpful to you, or you might be helpful to them in their business. So those are authentic connections that are built over time that allow you to trust people that you see every week. So we're run for the community, by the community. All of our organizers are volunteers, and we try to take advantage of the unique aspects of New Mexico. We're radically and intentionally inclusive. And what that means is all kinds of people are welcome here, all different levels of experience in business, all different kinds of businesses, brick and mortar shops, whiteboard companies that might have a little bit of outside funding and are getting ready to start, people that are scaling, and people that have gone all the way and drop in and tell us how it's done. All those folks are welcome here. And as long as we keep up that friendly and educational environment. And there's a mission statement about that. You can read it. This is a great time to think about what you want on 1 Million Cups, right? You might need help with your business. Just keep talking to people. Sooner or later, you'll find someone who knows something about something that you need help with. You should listen carefully and ask good questions. If you're on the other side of that, please be helpful. Please be kind. Please be patient. Try to figure out what they don't know. Help them with that. And keep track of their progress. So we're all here to support each other. Speaking of things you can do, you can apply to present. We're booked through June now, I guess, right? But there's plenty of room in the calendar for people
Not
later.
through,
Through June.
not through.
Into June. We're booked into June. So all of May is gone, even though it's only the 1st of May. So if you have a for-profit business defined as a business that sells goods or services for more than it costs to produce them, you're welcome to present. We prefer companies that have been in business 5 years or less, because those are the ones that need help because they might go under. And we'll assign you a coach and we'll make you look your best, and we'll coach you in getting the most out of your presentation by focusing on that question, what can the community do for you? And this community has done a lot for a lot of different companies. All right, this is our volunteer team. I'm Paul Sauter with Equiseek. Lisa Atkins here with Fat Pipe. Eric Renz Whitmore is in Santa Fe keeping everything running. Danielle is here, and Keiko and Oscar are making other people look good. And we have room for another organizer. This could be you. You can have your picture up there every week. Okay, that's small compensation for the amount of work you're going to have to do, but you'll have a lot of fun doing that and you'll learn things. It's also a pleasure to thank our sponsors. Fat Pipe has been our host here for 10 years, rent-free for 10 years. We could not have done this without the generosity of Fat Pipe. Dry Heat Photography, Deanna's making us look good every week. More Than Organized, Miriam's here to organize your stuff, your thoughts, and provide creamer. Foundation for Sustainable Living is our coffee sponsor. Beyond Energy is something a little higher octane than coffee. And Noventum Custom Software Development, there's Brian, for software that doesn't suck, and he's also the donut provider. And Minuteman Press for all your ink on paper needs. So thanks again to all our sponsors. And that's it. We are ready to hand it over to the coach. Were you the coach?
I was the coach. Hi, guys. This is Kathy Callow-Huser, a Jill of many trades, a woman in tech, which I love. And she's here to talk today about her company, Betterment Labs.
I'm Kathy Callow-Huser. My story that I'm going to talk about today wouldn't be complete without talking about my children. So I'll start there. So there they are. Okay, two of my children are biological children. And when they were young, I was working for a special education professor that you'll hear more about in a minute. And he said, you need to teach them to read yourself. So he introduced me to this book, Teach Your Children to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. And when they were 4.5 and 5 consecutively, I taught my own children to read. I then adopted two children from the state of Utah. They were wards of the state. They were special needs kids. They were 2.5 and 8 when they joined our family. Our 8-year-old was at the end of 2nd grade, knew less than half of his letter sounds and letter names. And so I put him in a school that used the same method as this book uses. And by the end of 3rd grade, he was reading on a 5th grade level. So I was introduced to what we call now the science of reading, the body of research that we know contributes to teaching and learning reading. And that's what my story is going to be about today. But I want to start back further. I grew up in Albuquerque and graduated from El Dorado High. I'm a wanderer like me, so I've got to stick on the star. I graduated from El Dorado High School, went to UNM in chemical engineering. I finished my 3rd year of school and went to an internship in northern Utah at Thiokol ATK. They build the space shuttle booster motors and lots of rockets and intercontinental ballistic missiles and all those things. I had the privilege of working on the space shuttle booster motors installation before the Challenger explosion. When I got tired of all the sexual harassment, I went back to school and I went to the, I see some laughs. I went to the University of Utah to finish a degree in computer science. I did a short stint at Sperry Computer Corp and then went to Utah State University as a professional employee building expert systems for a special education professor, the one I mentioned a minute ago. I worked for him and then his son on and off for the next 30 years. That's part of my story. With him, I helped design the software that controlled the introduction of sounds and words in a beginning reading program called Reading for All Learners. That's still on the market. It's still being sold. In 2013, I helped them get a National Science Foundation Small Business Innovation Research Grant to update the program and turn it into mobile apps. It's now online as well. They spun that off from Utah State University to Academic Success for All Learners, and the last time I worked with them officially was 2015. During my time at Utah State University, I also served as a principal investigator on a National Science Foundation Math Science Partnership Program grant. We helped build evaluation capacity in the math science partnerships. I mention that only because this is where I decided to become an entrepreneur. The faculty members on that grant didn't get along. They started filing grievances against each other. They sucked me in. I didn't want to be in the middle of all that. I wanted to leave academia. So I started Envision, Research and Evaluation. We provided educational research and evaluation services to a variety of companies. I submitted 6 proposals in the beginning, thinking I might get one, and I got all 6 funded, including, by the way, a UNM contract to evaluate the banner system at UNM, if you know what that is. It's their financial system. So Envision existed until 2020 when I finally closed the doors, but from 2004 to 2012, my main contract was with the Bureau of Indian Education, evaluating their Reading First grant and subsequent initiatives in reading and math. I'm going to talk more about that in just a minute too. But from there, as the BIE work closed out and I was tired of 4 weeks out of the month travel, I went back to Utah State University and served as math faculty in the Math and Statistics Department. I was the Director of Developmental Math and supervised all of those people that teach the remedial math courses. I retired from USU after 20 years of service across 30 years and went to the Utah State Board of Education. That's like our public education department here, and served in a variety of roles there. Before I decided to, again, start my own business because I wanted to develop some apps based on ideas that I had. My business partner is shown here. His name is Charles Major. He's online. Hi, Charles. And listening to this today. I've known him since he was 6. He was in my son's first grade class, and I helped him learn how to read also during that time frame. So we have a very long history. He also worked with me in Envision Research and Evaluation across time. And again, after he went to college, he was still working with me. The pandemic hit. We were signing contracts with school districts, medical facilities, tribes, and literally the pandemic hit as we were trying to finalize some of those contracts. All of those things shut down, schools, medical clinics, at least as far as outside stuff, and tribes. So I was here in New Mexico. I had come back in 2019 to help with aging parents, decided to do something. So I worked for the DOH as the COVID contact tracing director for 2 years. Oh, what a time that was. And then I just finished a year at the PED as their chief statistician, working to help the Research Evaluation and Accountability Bureau with school grades to designations. But now I want to go back to what's the theme throughout this, early literacy. And one of the products we wanted to develop and get on the market with Betterment Labs. It's called Literacy Loom, and it's based on the science of reading, the body of 50 years of research to know how to teach reading the best, and representation. Let me tell you about it a little bit. I need to start with some data. Did you know that only 2 out of 5 white children in the US read on grade level? And only 1 out of 5 Hispanic, Native, and Black children read on grade level. New Mexico stats are even worse. 35% of white children read on grade level. 1 out of 6 Hispanic students, 1 out of 10 Native students. And on the National Assessment of Educational Progress, our thermometer into education, there's not enough Black kids in the state of New Mexico to have a representative sample. So they don't report the number for Black children in the state, but it's probably similar to our Native children. Having been at the PED for a year, it's similar to our Native children. So those are abysmal numbers, right? And why are they that way? Well, people will say poverty, trauma. Well, I'm going to call bullpucky on that. In my work with the Bureau of Indian Education, we showed that Native kids could learn how to read. Here's 3 years worth of data from that work using the SAT 10 Reading First version. So it's equivalent to the SAT 11th grade test that kids take. It was just created to work for Reading First. And you can see the kids did amazingly well at the end of the 3rd year. They did even better by the end of the fourth year, but I can't find the hard drive that has that data. So this is what I've got. But you can see even 3rd graders, when we change from learning to read to reading to learn, when they're working in content areas, we had almost 60% reading on grade level across all of our BIE schools nationwide. So huge investments, but also huge gains. We know that Native kids can learn how to read with good instruction, regardless of the poverty and trauma that they live in. So given that, oh, one other thing I should point out, the BIE had the 5th greatest gains in reading fluency. By the way, notice New Mexico's below that, meaning even greater gains during that time. What happened? And the 2nd greatest gains in reading comprehension. New Mexico's about 7 above that with a little bit smaller number. So we know things worked for at least some states during that time. So why can't kids read? I just disputed the poverty issue, right? Well, first, most English language arts programs are not based on what we know works best to teach kids how to read, and most teachers don't know how to implement good practices. I see lots of smiles back there. I'm gonna be curious to ask y'all what some of those smiles are about. Better than the death duels last week, right? Okay. So the science of reading is 50 years of research that we know is about how kids learn to read and how we can teach reading the best. And in New Mexico, we're calling that structured literacy, not just New Mexico, nationwide. We're calling the methods used to teach reading structured literacy. There's another reason that kids don't learn how to read well, though, and that's their cultures are not connected to the materials they're learning to read with. This reduces their engagement. It uses words that kids aren't familiar with because they aren't used in their communities, which makes learning to read a challenge. And for many kids, there's taboos in those reading curricula. So for example, that reading program that I helped develop that has a snake in it, the kindergarten part of that, over half of the stories have a snake. And snakes are taboo on the Navajo Nation. Teachers throughout half of the stories in that reading program. And that was an intervention program for those kids. We had to figure out a way to replace it. Owls are used to teach the OW sound. Bats are a consonant, vowel, consonant word to use in beginning reading. Those things are taboo among many tribes and among other people. People coming in from Africa often have those same taboos. So we interrupt their reading with things that they aren't allowed to talk about. So Literacy Loom, the software that we built. Literacy Loom software guides educators and community leaders in developing culturally bound or content specific, like hogans or magnets, beginning reading materials to teach kids how to read. Our tagline is write your own culturally bound or content specific sequences of books for teaching beginning literacy skills. And there's still nothing like this out there on the market. We had a National Science Foundation Small Business Innovation Research Grant, phase 1 grant, to develop this product, but originally for endangered languages, our tribal languages. We demonstrated that our software worked with that. As the pandemic hit and we lost our access to tribes, one of the constant comments was, we still need to teach our kids to learn to read in English and the materials aren't appropriate. So when the pandemic hit, Charles and I added English and Spanish to our software, and it does work, but it's a prototype. It's a proof of concept out there yet.
Yeah.
I can use it now. So during that time, I also got to do a TED Talk. So if you want to go see my TED Talk, it's kind of fun, and it was kind of fun to do it. Okay, so our challenges. First off, the pandemic hit, we had to get real jobs. The software is a 2019-2020 version of software. It needs updating. We also added English at the last moment. English is so much more complex than any of the native languages or Romance languages or any of the other languages we can put in our software. And we need to add a lot of supports for people to be able to use it well in English. I can use it, but handing it off would be very challenging for other people. So our challenges, well, we first got to update our software. So we're looking at crowdsourcing, and I'm trying to finalize a pitch so that we can seek some crowdsource funding now, unless there's a generous angel investor in the crowd. So we want to get our software up and running. Charles is working full time. I need to be able to pull him back as my developer and put some money in it. We also know that we need to network and regain our contacts. One of our contacts that I was in close touch with before the pandemic has passed from COVID. Tribes still haven't fully opened up. We've lost our school contracts, so we've got to start over. Networking will help with that. And of course, being in New Mexico actually helps because people down here get the fact that a lot of our curricula doesn't work. Martinez Yazzie says that we have to be culturally responsive in our curriculum now, right? Are y'all familiar with Martinez Yazzie? Yeah, it was the lawsuit that some families here brought against New Mexico because their kids weren't learning how to read and do math, and it went to the US Supreme Court level, and New Mexico lost in 2019. So we have to have a plan in place to be more culturally responsive and make sure that those kids get to their grade level standards. We also need to deal with marketing because we're in an education market, and education markets are very challenging to break into. We've got a lot of connections. I have tons of connections nationwide, but marketing is always a problem in education. So those are our main challenges besides just getting back off the ground. And I don't know where my 10 minutes are, but I can stop and ask questions.
Guys know the drill. Make a line if you want to ask a question. We'll take questions online.
Hi, I'm Paul Sutter with Equiseek, and I'm here to demonstrate two things. This time, you introduce yourself and point the mic at your mouth while you're talking. So my question is, your approach to reading, teaching reading, is different from one that has unfortunately become very established, even though the data shows that it's no good, and that's the queuing thing, right? And you have that talked about, right? So how do
Listen
you,
to Soul the Story, the podcast.
yeah, how do you displace a bad idea that you know doesn't work, but people like it and they keep using it?
What a great question. So you put laws in place. New Mexico now has structured literacy in our laws. Heinemann, the company that also produces the 3 queuing method curricula, has lost 75% of their revenue this year.
Yes.
I read that yesterday. So things are changing and many states now have mandated structured literacy in their programs. There's not a lot of programs in line with it though. So teachers are still struggling. We're training all teachers in the state of New Mexico to use letters, the language essentials for teachers of English and reading. I think that's it. And that will help because it increases their knowledge base and then they'll know how to add things to their reading curriculum that will help. But it's a huge effort and we're just starting. And we knew how to do this 40, 50 years ago.
Yes, I know. All right, talk to me about it.
Oh, cool.
We have a question online. I'm going to take one online first. Sue Polosny, do you want to unmute and ask your question, please?
Kathy, I'm intrigued by this software program that you're doing. It's extremely important. Can you work with PED and the boards of education here in Albuquerque, Rio Rancho to get this launched?
While I was working with PED this past year, I did not feel like it was an appropriate time to say, hey, I'm working with you because I got a product. I now have lots of contacts. I'm trying to build our pitch back up so that I can approach some of those people. Governor knows me well from my work with COVID, so I think that I can approach the governor's office soon. So that's part of the goal. Good question.
That'd be great. Sure.
Thanks, Sue.
Hi, Jay Pullen with New Path Wellness. I have a practice in hypnotherapy and biomagnetics. However, I'm also board president of a nonprofit that supports the work of an agency that does work with kids that have attachment disorders. So I don't really know how to approach this conversation, but I want to talk about the trauma piece that you talked about. And yes, trauma victims can learn to read. However, here's the issue, at least with the population that we work with. They're often, because of their bad behavior that's basically looked upon as sociopathic. In the public schools, they're pushed to the back of the classroom and they're treated as though they're intellectually challenged. The truth is they're not. Some of them are actually quite intelligent. The problem is because of the trauma that they have suffered and neglect and all kinds of things like that. When they're in the classroom, they're so focused on scanning the environment to look for threat that they can't pay any attention to what's going on. If we can get those kids in an environment where you can get trust, and that's the key word, they have to trust the people that they're working with. They can actually learn to read pretty well, particularly the older ones. Some of these kids get up to the age 10, 11, 12 and can't read a word. And so they've just been passed along the education system and, you know, managed however they can. So I have 2 questions, I think, and I'm still trying to formulate this in my head. But number one, who has access to the software? You know, it might be something that our clinicians would be able to utilize because they're not going to get it in the public schools.
Right.
So one of the things we're working on is creating a charter school for the kids.
I want to be there with you.
Okay. So just what I'm saying is it would be great to be able to have some kind of communication with you. We have had, well, one of the men that works on our program or works with the agency has a PhD in education. He's won awards in Dallas, Chicago for his work. And it's because he knows how to work with these kids. And therefore he's able to teach them to read where others have failed. But it sounds to me like this software could boost that substantially. So I'm just wondering what kind of conversations we can have together.
Okay, gotta start back at the beginning of this. I adopted 2 kids with severe reactive attachment disorder. They are now 30 and 36. They read voraciously. So I have evidence that we can do this with kids, right? We saw that with our BIE kids as well. Beyond that, our software can't be used by the kids. It's really to develop the reading materials based on the science of reading that are culturally bound and that will help kids learn how to read. But with the BIE, if you are familiar with Steve Dykstra, you should look him up. He was a school psychologist and psychiatrist. He says Reading is the one thing to overcome all of that trauma. And he talks about that nationwide. He's a good friend. And he has plenty of evidence to show that if we do the right things to teach kids how to read, we can break the barriers of reactive attachment disorder and all of the trauma associated with those kinds of things.
Incoming voice call from
Well,
Sandra.
we need to-
I would love to be involved if you start a charter school.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Hi, Clifton Chadwick, Comunicaciones Cocopelli. I'm curious about the culturally bound stuff in the face of the Texas repository of books. How do you plan on introducing your product that's culturally bound, which means that it's probably going to have a lot of stuff in it that a state like Texas doesn't want people to know?
So the software is designed to have educators and community leaders develop their own stories for beginning reading. So it kind of gets around that state level stuff. It really isn't designed to be, we've been asked to build a classroom-based version. So kids can also write stories because we've neglected writing as we teach reading, right? So they want a classroom-based version so kids can also write stories limited to the sounds and words they've been taught. But the goal really is to put this in the hands of educators and community leaders so that they can develop their own beginning reading curriculum and support the system. I mean, my goal, I have to be careful when I say this, my goal is to break the big publishers' backs because they aren't doing our kids any service, right? Yeah.
Thank you. Brian Steiner, Noventum Custom Software. We competed against Pearson on a project and it was just, they were horrible. So I hope you can destroy the publishers. So bad. But that's more of a testimonial than a question. I think I understand who your users are, the people that are teaching kids to read, that are developing this course material. And maybe you're still working on who pays you. And maybe that's school districts, maybe that's cities, counties, states, the feds.
All of that.
Yeah, but do you have any, I mean, those are different, right? So who actually are you targeting? You have a CRM, who's in your sales list, who's got the target on their back?
Yeah, we're starting over. So some of that is, let's figure out what happens next. So the first target is really tribes and community leaders that want to do this for themselves, and then we'll expand beyond that. Start small, one target audience, right? The people who would be willing to develop some culturally bound books to help kids learn how to read. And so I'm connected to tribes, I'm connected to a lot of tribes because of my reading first work with them. But I'm also connected to a lot of community leaders who would like to do this for the kids in their communities. Murray School District in Utah is about 80% refugee kids. They're interested in using this kind of software to help all of the kids that they have from a variety of countries use materials that are not white centric.
Gotcha.
Hi, I'm Brian Blondo. I buy small businesses and my aim in buying small businesses is to keep successful businesses in the community. That's just me. Thank you for your presentation. I want to explain my smile because you asked. Oh,
Yeah, I know that was simple. It's like, that's disconcerting.
There was a part in your presentation where you talked about kind of in a way a kid suddenly learns how to read and figure something out. And I smiled because my whole life I felt the same, like that feeling when you figure something out. And then have a system that you know you can trust. That's so great that you're concentrating on that. And so that's the base of my question. What a list of things that you've done.
I'm old.
That's intense. That's intense. That's a lot. And so my question is, how would you recommend people who have a lot of other interests, but also know how important reading is to kind of go in the direction of helping this kind of a movement? Because I do a lot of things as well. But as soon as you bring up reading, as soon as you bring up words and kids learning, I'm like, how can I help? So that's kind of my question. How would you recommend people kind of go in that direction, help you out?
Help me with pitch to get started. Yeah, you know, all of my experiences over time have contributed to where I'm, which is why I mention a lot of them, especially as I mentor young women. You don't have one career path, you have many. And to the extent that you can weave them together, it's very valuable. And that's how I mentor young women is you don't have to pick one thing, you can change. So that part of my message holds true regardless of who I talk to. I think that just knowing that kids are struggling to read and being invested in helping them learn how to read is an important part of this. All of us can teach kids how to read if you've got the right materials. So don't neglect that. I am on the board of Ethos Literacy in town. And we help people learn how to read. So it doesn't matter how old people are. There are many people in our community. New Mexico has the lowest adult literacy rate in the nation, right? We need to work on this. So being involved with all of the literacy efforts, whether it's early literacy or adult literacy, really is important. And we need volunteers for Ethos Literacy. So I'll put that plug in now too.
give an excuse for bringing up that question is because all these talented people in here are all also wanting to help kids read. That's how we do it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I am Marilyn Pruitt with our Peaceful Path Life Coaching. Great for getting, helping to cope with stress. I was a homeschool mom. Have you thought of anything with homeschooling, how to do that? Do you have connections and things like that?
Lots. Reading for All Learners that I mentioned that I helped develop early on, that's available to homeschool parents and it works really well. It's not 100% aligned with the current science of reading research, but it's 95%, okay? So that program is available online for parents to use, and one of his main target audience is homeschooling parents. So that's one way. I didn't choose to homeschool other than my 2 biological kids because I was overwhelmed with the issues of adoption. But I get the whole issue. I mean, I would have homeschooled all 4 of mine for reading. Realize I'm a math educator by trade. Would have homeschooled for reading, regardless if I had the choice. So Reading for All Learners works. The stuff that we will be working with works. I'm starting to develop some series with our software now because I can use it that tie math and science into beginning reading, because we now know there's a knowledge deficit in our beginning reading. We know that we've been using fluff for all these years, and kids that start 3rd grade without enough background knowledge to be able to pass the tests, right? So I'm trying to build some series right now that have the content-rich stuff in them now.
That's amazing. My oldest refused to learn to read because it was boring. Fluff.
Yes.
And the only thing that got him to read is when his friends started talking about Harry Potter. So I'm not reading that to you. You have to read it on your own. But there is a real, I've been on homeschool playgrounds many times and talked with moms, and it's, some kids are natural readers, some are not. And how do you get the kid to read that doesn't is a challenge, and it's huge. And my then little I will not read kid, if he'll slow down, he can read a 1,000-page book in 2 days, and he is the best at discussing books. But getting over that hump is huge.
It's huge, and we've got to teach kids with things that interest them, right? The other piece that we hope to do is with a classroom-based, individual-based version is to get kids writing with the sounds and words that they know. And so that also will help because success breeds success. When kids feel successful about reading, they read.
Yeah.
And so the goal is to help breed success.
And bring in reading that is
Interesting to all of them.
interesting.
And every child will be different with what interests them,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. They're all different. So thank you. I'm excited. It's good.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I love your jacket, by the
Thank
way, just saying.
Thank you.
You look good. I'm Barbara
This
Dawson.
is my politician's jacket from when I ran for office in Utah.
Okay. Well, it still looks good. I'm Barbara Dawson with Purple Mulch, and I am an educator. I homeschooled my 4 children from birth, and my son didn't really want to learn to read. He liked being read to, so he got read to a lot until he started playing Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It's a card deck, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Ohs, and he had to read them in order to play the game. And so when you were saying it has to be something they're interested in, yeah, absolutely. That's what he did. Have you heard of a company called A to Z Learning?
Yep.
Okay. My daughter used to work for them. I know they do a lot of online stuff. I don't know if there's a connection there. You know them, there may or may not be.
Yeah, they're on my list. I don't know that they're well aligned with what we're trying to do.
Okay, just thought I'd throw
But
that out.
I won't say that firmly until I look smart.
Okay, great.
Good morning. My name is David Nanneman. I'm with Presented Design Group. We do consulting in biochemistry and protein engineering. I'm curious if your practices method has been peer reviewed, published in
Oh,
literature.
yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Missed that.
Yeah, 50 years of research body accumulates to the science of reading.
But
That's what we're
yours in
using.
particular
We're
has,
well aligned with the science of reading.
you're aligned with it, but it hasn't been utilized in a study.
Correct, because it's only a prototype right now.
Okay.
But that said, I designed the software for Reading for All Learners. That is still used. I did do several external studies that are in the IES, Institute for Education Sciences database, where we demonstrated that worked, and this is an extension of that.
Okay. Connecting the two ideas, do you have contacts in the special education department here at UNM?
No, everywhere else, but not here.
My wife's on faculty there.
That's all I
Let's
know.
talk.
I want to talk. Connections, this is about networking.
It is.
I'm Thomas Dukeman. I do cloud engineering consulting. I'm mostly here for authentic connections, like you're just saying. So I've got two questions. The first is kind of more raw, but just about your background, heavy math and then heavy literacy education. Where do those kind of collide? Like why are you so interested in both? I guess that's the question.
Because I was a math educator, and if kids can't read, they can't pass a math test. But we aren't teaching math right either. The methods that we need to use for teaching math are aligned with the science of reading. And when I taught, I was using the same methods we use in science of reading to teach math, and I had incredible success rates. There's stories for that too.
That was pretty much my follow-up is, are you interested or do you have a plan for doing math as well?
I want to focus on one thing, and that's beginning literacy. I will include math concepts in the books I'm developing now, because I think that's important for kids to understand some of those concepts earlier on. But I really did learn that if kids can't read, they can't do math.
Yeah.
And so I would rather focus on beginning reading, because I think without that, kids don't have an opportunity for success.
Sure. I do have one more question if you're game. So again, background in math statistics. So you understand large language models.
I do.
What's your, it's not even an exact question. What's your opinion? What are your thoughts on how this can help with what you're doing?
So there's a couple of pieces of software out there right now that are generating kids' books, claim to be based on the science of reading. They're really not. But they end up being the fluff stories we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
So there's not any content specific or culturally bound. I've been playing with one of those software programs this past couple of weeks to see if I can generate stories about hogans or longhouses or any of the kinds of things that would be culturally
And
bound.
they're all
in science.
trained on the existing material.
They are,
Yeah.
and you can't do it.
Yeah.
We did use large language models as we were developing databases for our endangered language version of this in 2019, and it's come a
Before.
whole long way
Yeah.
since then. So.
Very good. Well, thank you.
Hello, Mary Mortizzi Pino with More Than Organized. Two things. I wanted to follow up on a couple of comments and how they all came together. Your ability to connect the dots and really simplify it is so impressive. And I love that it demonstrates your passion about this subject, and it's shown up in all your different jobs over the years. So newer people take that to heart. Also, I think there's this piece that you're touching on, but haven't actually said about trauma and attachment disorder and what it's doing to society in terms of violence and empathy and stuff. And I love that this can help with that, and that you're already making the connections from the beginning. Instead of keeping everybody separate, it connects where you are and then sends you out. Am I getting that right?
I think so, yeah.
Nice, I love it.
So one piece of my history I didn't mention is I worked for the National Research Project for Early Head Start. Before I adopted my kids, before a lot of this history, I was the project director for that. I learned all about attachment and then adopted kids.
Yeah. Great.
Would not have been successful without that. But my respite care providers were all of my friends who were special educators and marriage and family therapists, and we wouldn't have survived that adoption without them as well.
Right.
So the pandemic increased trauma, right? And kids being at home without parents and with all of the trauma that goes along with that increased it. If any of you are real interested, look up Steve Dykstra. He's my friend that I mentioned a minute ago. He really has done a lot of research on trauma informed care and reading. And that's the key. He's
The
a
key to empathy.
evangelical leader with that stuff.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good questions.
I have an intro for you that I'll do offline. That might be helpful. So thank you, Kathy. We have two more questions.
Okay.
Red or green?
Christmas.
And what's the one thing this community can do for you today?
I think the biggest thing is my business partner is, let me hold that.
Yeah.
My business partner's in Utah. He's still working full time. I'm trying to get this off the ground on my own. And I left PED in February. getting it off the ground on my own at home is challenging. So I'll be down here once a week, probably Wednesdays, because it gets me down here for this as well. And just the networking and support, the checking in and asking what mental health support I need as I try to do this by myself, and Charles still working, is probably the biggest thing this community can do for me right now.
Right? Okay, we do have some events to share, and not only that, but I think we have some people who want to talk about events, so I'm sure. So I have a list, and then if I miss anything, or if you want to, I know Will is here, he wants to talk about his event to give some more detail about it. You are welcome to come up, and I'm done. Zone down. Oh, he's if anybody wants a copy of this list, email me at lisa@fappbbq.com, and I would be happy to send it to you because it has the links, which are great. Regional Development Corporation has a micro grant fund available. I think Sue Perlazny sent this one to me. This grant provides a small infusion of capital to help businesses diversify, sustain, or grow revenue. I did notice that it is basically northern New Mexico, so you have to be in a certain county, and they're listed there. Deadline is just in a couple days to apply. Activate NM is doing a speed mentoring for entrepreneurs, quick advice from experts. That will be online. I have the link for you to register. That's also on Friday. NMTC, have you had that event yet? May 9th, no. So if you are at the Women in Tech.
I think the CNN thing is in person at the Q Station.
Oh, very cool. Well, the link will probably tell you. Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Speed mentoring in person is way more fun than online. NMTC is having a get together to honor again their Women in Tech honorees. So you get to come to this happy hour basically and talk to these amazing women. It's happening May 9th from 4:30 to 7. I have the link to register. NMTC has lots of other interesting peer groups. They're all listed online. And our own death doula, Danielle, is having a open house. So that's May 10th from 1 to 7. Her and her associates, death doula professionals, Brooke, they presented last week. So you should go check out their open house. This is Will Events. He is a tenant here at Fat Pipe. Okay, well, come on up. You can just tell us about it now, because I know there's some other stuff you can do to help people, right? Or you need more information or something. Tell us.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Bao. I'm a data scientist and statistician located here at Fat Pipe. Essentially, I'm going to do a brief presentation on May 10th and May 23rd. You can register on Eventbrite. My understanding is the announcement is going to go out on the new newsletter
This morning.
this morning. So my company's name is Fitten Data. You can find out more about the company at fittendata.com. Essentially, my business is targeting small to medium-sized businesses that may not be able to afford their own data scientist. But data science is a term that is thrown around very loosely. And so to give people a better idea of what that actually means and how it might be able to be used to leverage for your own businesses, I'm doing this short seminar and followed by an open question and answer session. And after that, a few hours of free individual one-on-one speed consultant sessions. So about 20 minutes each. And so you're welcome to come. Thank you so much.
Will just applied to present, so we'll get to hear from him in a couple weeks. Activate NM and Founder Syndicate, mentor mashup at UNN 17. Anybody ever been to UN 17? It's a cool little speakeasy, private club, lots of different rooms, beautiful place. Activate NM Space Fiesta at the Rail Yards is happening June 6th. And then our friends at Catharsis Media, don't forget, are replaying our videos on Comcast channel 96, and you can apparently also see them online. Brian, you must have an event you want to talk about.
Yeah, as always, we sponsor a WordPress work along on third Tuesday, which is May 21st from 6 to 7:30 at Ideas and Coffee. So if you do not yet have a very expensive maintenance and support contract with my company, you can come to that and see what you're missing with WordPress.
I'm Barbara Dawson with Purple Mulch, and I have a couple of announcements. First of all, I am a gardener. That's not what Purple Mulch is necessarily about, but it's part of where the name came. And I've got a hoop house that has a lot of tomato plants and Sandia hot chilies, some Puerto de Luna chilies, a variety of tomatoes. If you want some tomatoes and some chili, you'll need to come to Corrales to pick them up. But get my name and number and come on down. I have plenty. Second announcement, this Thursday from 3 to 4:30, I'm doing a free online course called Authentic Communication. Not to put anybody on the spot and to put everybody on the spot. If you've taken my Authentic Communication course before, raise your hand. So talk to those people if you go, is it worth my spending an hour and a half free, but my time to go and play in Barbara's Zoom room? If so, see me and I can give you the link to register. And then next week, I think it is the 8th, I'm going to be doing a 6-week course called Authentic Communication Through the Sales Cycle. And that is to help all of us who are entrepreneurs that go, gosh, I do all these networking things, I meet all these people, and I just don't get traction, I don't get the business. What I'd love to do is meet people and have a way of actually building my business and creating money. So that will be on the 8th through whatever the date is in June. So again, see me if you're interested in that. That is not a free course, it's a paid course, but it's not very expensive. See me. Oh.
Okay, well, this is coming up fast.
And this way, Paul.
The state of New Mexico offered a pitch competition with a $200,000 prize, and that occurs tomorrow. So the basis of the pitch is they want a collaboration between a faculty member at one of the 3 research universities and a student to produce some kind of innovation that could be brought to market from a newly formed company within a year. I am really interested in seeing who thinks they can pull that. I see a lot of head shaking. I mean, no way, right? Because like university professors, they've never even run a lemonade stand. What do they know about running a company, right? So there's just missing expertise in this. There's lots of great ideas at our universities that have commercial potential, but it's a different set of skills to bring it to market. Believe me, I have the scar tissue to prove that. So anyway, tomorrow at across the street at UNM Rainforest Innovations is an event where these daring people will present to vie for the 200,000. And what's also in it for you, this is also the New Mexico Angels Quarterly. Now, if you're not a member of the New Mexico Angels, it would cost you $75 to go to a quarterly event, but tomorrow you could go for free. So this is from 4 to 6 p.m. right across the street at UNM Rainforest Innovations. I will be there. I will be very interested to see who's pitching. And I'll also be working the room as I always do. And I encourage you to do that as well. What else we got? Introductions.
Oh, you said that online. Everybody's gonna hear the comment.
About what? Lemonade stands?
Hey, do we have any newbies in the room? I think I see a couple people maybe who have never been here before. Everybody who's been here, have you been here before? Don't be shy. We're very polite. Come on up. Come over here. Yeah, come on up. We want to know who you are. You have a business. Tell us about it. How'd you hear about 1 Million Cups?
Hi, my name is Nicole and I'm with Cactus Rain with Lauren back there, and first time here, she keeps talking about it and here I am.
What does Cactus Rain do?
It's rainwater catchment systems, laundry to landscape, and gray water systems.
Perfect. Awesome. I think you guys should present.
Give us a minute.
Hi, my name is,
Yeah, you're good.
all right, sorry, I didn't know if that would work. My name is Noah Minikuchi and I'm currently a C&M student, but currently me and a friend of mine, were hoping to launch a clothing brand. Currently, we're not really looking forward to it maybe next year, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the road. We're still trying to get our feet, we're still trying to dip our toes into the water, we're trying to be very conservative while moving forward. But how I heard about this, really, I saw it in the papers, yeah. Yeah, it's a nice to read the papers.
We love that you came and we want to hear more about your clothing line. We probably have a couple connections we can make for you on that front. All right, I guess we could just have more networking time, huh, Paul?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I won't take long, because you have 10 minutes to get a warm introduction to someone who's gonna move your business forward, right? So it's been another great week at Million Cups. I really love the idea of getting kids to read, because I'm astonished at the statistics in New Mexico, and I see them on a regular basis. We talk to members of the school board about this. You're really working on an important problem. So that reminds us that a lot of people here are doing businesses to solve something difficult that's not necessarily highly lucrative. And I want to applaud everybody for the big uphill climb that is, convincing people that you can both do good and do well. So see you all next week. Thank you.